Welcome to week 1 of football on the What Do They Know podcast. Football is finally here and the guys are stoked, and they're here to discuss all the headlines from week 1 action.
What do they know? We are about to find out. Welcome back to the What Do They Know podcast. Welcome back to football season. Right. We made it. We survived. Week 1 is officially here. Nick and Jeff back with you to break down all of the week 1 action, some headlines, some overreactions, just a little bit of everything. I felt like I was sitting there watching the game today. I don't know about you, but today we were watching Rams and Cardinals, and like literally as they were getting ready to kick off, I just
Bills and Cardinals, you mean?
What did I say?
Rams and Cardinals.
We're watching the Rams right now. Bills and Cardinals. And I literally, as they lined up to kick off, I'm like, all is right with the world. Like it just feels so good to have football back.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely an inner peace, I feel like, that comes in that basically dissolves itself for like after the first minute, because you're like, oh, this is going to decide my mood for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Not for me today, actually. Today I had the luxury of just sitting watching football without caring.
Yeah, sitting back and relax. That's the way to do it.
Really nice. Tomorrow night will be a different story. But today was very nice to sit there without any pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a good day for me.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Yeah, week 1, all projections, all predictions out the window, and you see what your team's got and the flaws and what's going to pick at you all year and what players you're going to yell at every time they show their faces on the screen. So, I mean, so far I was almost 50 points. I have nothing to complain about.
As good as a week 1 as you could ask for.
Absolutely.
All right. I love it. Well, we are going to dive into some top stories. Just each of us have a couple things that kind of caught our eye after week 1. I'll let you go first.
Okay, well, this is where when we did our NFC South segment, it was a whole rant on my Saints. This is the complete opposite. Okay. I'm gonna glaze the Saints right now. These guys, obviously it's the Panthers. They weren't lighting the world on fire last year. It's a 2-win team, obviously, from last year, number 1 overall pick that they gave away to Chicago. But I mean, you still have to show out and come out and play the game. Offense looked terrific.
Yeah, and that's one thing we talked a lot about.
And they fired their offensive coordinator from last year, Pete Carmichael Jr. I mean, they got some burners going at the I want to say the last 5-6 weeks of last season, where they started piecing it together. But definitely parting yourself away from the last remnant from the Sean Payton offense was, I felt like, a necessary step to kind of just continue evolving and continue progressing offensively. Clint Kubiak definitely was impressed with the offense that he put together for there in New Orleans. Derek Carr, he was slinging it. There was a couple of times in the game where he kind of checked down, and I was like, oh no, is this the Derek Carr of last year? We're just checking it down the entire time. But no, I mean, that first touchdown to Rashid Shaheed, 50-plus yard bomb to Rashid
on my
Shaheed.
Bench.
On one of my leagues, I had him too on my bench. So I mean, it's just good to see the ball getting slung accurately, and I guess in the right situations. I mean, there were times last year where it was 3rd and short, and instead of just running the ball or doing some little out route, you're gunning the ball 50 yards down the field. It's just not the right play call. So it's definitely a sight for sore eyes for me. The defense,
I bet.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the defense was impressive as well. The secondary is the Saints' strength, and they definitely held the Panthers wide receivers in check. So to me, it was my top story is the Saints, because that's just what I am. I'm Saints fan through and through, and that's
rightfully so.
Right, that's my top story on that one.
I don't blame you one bit.
Yep. And then my other one is just gonna be rookie QBs. Obviously, for me, I always love to see rookie QBs on their first start. See what exactly they're doing, how the team's reacting around them. Are they leading? Or what exactly they're doing in all facets of the game? I mean, Jaden Daniels, 17 for 24, not bad. 184, 184,
not bad
184 yards. The biggest stat line for him, though, was his rushing yards. I mean, he scrambled for 16 times for 88 yards and 2 TDs.
Yep.
That's pretty impressive. That's basically Justin Fields types numbers.
Yeah,
right there.
Lamar Jackson too. Yeah,
Lamar Jackson. These people who Lamar Jackson. I mean, 2-time MVP. So that's pretty impressive. The only thing is ball security.
Yeah.
I got 3 fumble losses recorded
Yeah.
for Jay Daniels. So obviously that's something they'll tighten up there. But I mean, you take the negatives with the positives, and I mean, you just work on it. You can kink out the negatives. So definitely positive for Jay Daniels. Bo Nix, 26 for 42. I mean, I'm kind of surprised you threw that much, but
Yeah.
hey.
I mean, that tells you what Sean Payton thinks of him.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly where I was going with it. I mean, if Sean Payton's it's Sean Payton's offense, you're going to throw the ball 100 basically the majority of the time.
Yeah.
But with a rookie QB, I'd probably I don't know tighten the reins a little bit, give it a little bit more to Javonte Williams, your running back. But he had 2 interceptions. He also scrambled 5 times for 35 yards and 1 TD. So he's got some wheels on him. Obviously, we knew that coming out of Oregon, but it's not going to be his strength like Jay Daniels. And then Caleb Williams, I feel like just like last year with Bryce Young, he was the least, I guess, complete or
the only team that got the win.
Yeah.
but the worst performance.
The worst performance. It's funny how that is. His defense definitely bailed him out.
Yeah, big time
in a huge way. I mean, he was 14 for 29 for 93 yards, 5 rush attempts for 15 yards and a fumble loss. I mean, that's definitely, I guess, what you expect from a rookie QB. Obviously, you hope for more from your number 1 overall pick. But like you said, it's funny how football works. And it's a team game 100% all the way through. So Williams better be buying his defense a good steak dinner after this one.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I don't have the stat in front of me, but the stat for rookie QBs in their first start is like, they're like something crazy, like 30-1 in the last several years. So obviously Caleb Williams kind of bucked that trend, but like we said, it wasn't because of him.
Right.
And, Daniels and Bo Nix kind of fell right in line with that statistic. Something crazy. It's a crazy, crazy win-loss record for rookie QBs in their first start. So yeah, I mean, I'll be curious to see if today was like an outlier for Caleb Williams. First, obviously, game 1 jitters.
Right.
First start of your NFL career officially. Obviously, he played in the preseason, but didn't really mean anything. So I'll be curious to see if, he's going to continue to struggle or if he's going to kind of figure it out and, play the way that everyone kind of predicts him and Chicago to play this year.
Right. And for me, honestly, I feel like Chicago has more pieces around him than Bryce Young did coming in last year with the Panthers. Yeah.
It's like not even close. Yeah.
So definitely the talent level there in Chicago is definitely a lot more elevated than Carolina was last year. So Caleb Williams, I feel like with Bryce Young, I've been trying to take a wait and see approach, but after today, it was really rough to see. And that's a little sneak preview for a little bit later. But with Caleb Williams right now, I almost feel like it has to be a 1-year thing because you're starting week 1 and you have talent around you. They drafted a wide receiver right there, right behind you on the top 10. And then you got DJ Moore and then Keenan Allen on the other end. You have pieces around you. So it'll be definitely interesting to see Caleb Williams' development as the year goes on.
All right. I love it.
Yep.
Are you good?
I'm good. It's all up to you now.
So my first top story is Jordan Love
Mm-hmm.
and just his injury. So obviously it came out yesterday. It looks like he has an MCL injury of some kind. They didn't really specify, but sounds like best case scenario. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of people saw the close-up video of his kneecap that basically it looked like it popped when he was getting tackled. Obviously, 6 seconds left in the game, second to last play of the game, and he goes down writhing in pain.
Right.
Had to be helped off the field. So when you saw that and then you saw the close-up of his kneecap, I mean, you're thinking worst case scenario, right? You're thinking out for the season. They came out and said it's a 3 to 6 week injury.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I wrote down their next 6 opponents. It's kind of, it's kind of iffy, right? So they got the Colts, the Titans, the Vikings. Those 3 games I think are okay. But then they finished that stretch with Rams, Cardinals, Texans. So I feel like for the Packers, who are now already 0-1, they need to at least be, 3-3?
Yeah,
at least to come out of this stretch to really give yourself
you're still in the
cushion.
At that point, halfway through this year, because at 6 plus this game that they just lost, that's 7 games. That's basically almost half your season.
It would put him at 3 and 4.
Yeah,
assuming he comes back at the max of the 6-week time frame.
Right,
they're 3 and 4. That's about where they were last year, before they obviously finished the year hot. So I'm hopeful. I like Jordan Love a lot. I think he's crazy talented. I know everyone had really big expectations for him and the Packers this year.
Right.
So for him to go down kind of, like that, is a bummer to see, but I really hope that he's able to bounce back and actually come back within that timeline and see what the Packers can do.
Yeah. I mean, those opponents you listed, I mean, the Titans, they were competitive. They threw that game away, basically. Unfortunately for them. Minnesota, Sam Darnold, like college Sam Darnold at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
It was crazy to watch. So I mean, those teams aren't, I suppose, cakewalks right now, especially if Week 1 has anything to say about it. But yeah, the Packers are definitely going to be in a predicament if they can't at least tread water until Jordan Love comes back. I mean, right now they got Malik Willis.
Yep, they just traded for him like 2 weeks ago.
Yep, so that's a whole new offense that he's coming into. I mean, he was what Tennessee last year.
Yep.
So
he did have a few starts. I think this is his 3rd or 4th year in the league.
Yeah.
He did come in and start a couple times for. Back when Tannehill was a starter, so he has seen some live game action. Obviously, he only played 2 plays, I think, to finish the game this week. So he's not coming in totally inexperienced, but at the same time, he's still, I would imagine, 2 weeks with the team, somewhat learning the team, learning the players, the offense, the playbook, everything.
Yeah, and I mean it's rough because he's a quarterback who kind of got outbeat by Will Levis when they're in Tennessee. So, I mean, you question the confidence level there. I mean, you're coming into Green Bay as a fresh start, getting to know your teammates and whatnot, trying to create positive vibes. And then all of a sudden you're thrust into the main spotlight of your team, with a playoff hopeful team, with a Super Bowl hopeful team. And I mean, if you don't perform well, and all of a sudden you're not going to make too many friends there in your new environment, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully for him, right? He's coming into a good situation. A lot of weapons. Obviously, we saw Jaden Reed have an unbelievable game on Friday. He's got the 3 wide receivers. He's got Josh Jacobs. He's got, by all accounts, a decent defense, even though they gave up a ton of points to Philly.
Yeah.
So he's in an okay situation. He just, you hear the term game manager all the time with quarterbacks, and you typically don't associate that with the best quarterback play. But I feel like in this situation, he literally just needs to be a game manager.
Yeah.
Let Josh Jacobs do his thing. Let his wide receivers do their thing. Yeah. We'll see how good of a coach Matt LaFleur is. Can he coach up his backup quarterback to actually look competent enough to keep them in games? We'll see.
Yeah, just don't lose the game. That's basically your job. Do not lose the game.
Yep, agreed. Yep. And then second for me, I just wrote down surprising performances, both for teams in general, but then also individual players.
Okay.
So first one I got, the biggest surprise for me was Patriots over the Bengals. For both of those teams.
Yeah.
Obviously, it wasn't a shootout by any means. Patriots won 16-10, but I mean, you think about the Patriots, who are in complete rebuild mode.
Absolutely. Yep.
And on the opposite end of the spectrum, you got the Bengals, who are in win now Super Bowl contention mode. At least everybody thinks. Obviously, I didn't. I picked them to finish last in their division. But, everybody else, I feel like I was vastly in the minority in that.
Now I gotta look.
You have them making the playoffs.
Do I have?
Yes. You have 3.
Yeah, last seed.
Yeah.
Last seed, yep.
So I just think it's really surprising, and I wonder how much of the Jamar Chase drama really affected that team. Like, even though it's one individual player and it's a team sport at the end of the day, that's all anybody has been talking about when it comes to Cincinnati for the last over a month.
Yeah.
And obviously he showed up, he played today, he was fine. He didn't do anything amazing. He didn't do anything horrible either. This outcome was really, really surprising to me because again, Patriots last place, rebuild, no expectations whatsoever, new head coach, QB who's really just a bridge guy.
Right.
And then they come in and they knock off a lot of teams, a team that a lot of people expect to be in the playoffs and fighting for a Super Bowl spot.
Right. I feel like Cincinnati's kind of like developed a history of starting off slow.
They 3 or 4 years in a row.
Yeah. They don't come out of the season hot at all. I mean, it's funny because when we we're doing our locks class here. I feel like we kind of predicted.
My dog's making an appearance. My dog's making an appearance on the show. Hi, Lib.
Go sit down, Lib.
Go lay down, Libby.
All
right.
But I think we kind of like saw this coming because we were both wary of the Cincinnati over New England locks. That's why we kind of leaned different avenues there. But yeah, it's I mean, Cincinnati's slow. New England has a little bit of a new energy to them now that Belichick is gone. So I mean, it's not the same old rinse, wash, repeat type of thing with Belichick. So. I mean, it's exciting times for New England, I feel like. But
I mean, you got to be excited, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and, in fairness, the Bengals didn't have T. Higgins.
Yeah.
So who knows how much of an impact that made. I mean, Joe Burrow, I think he only threw for about 160 yards today.
Yeah.
No touchdowns. The only touchdown came from Zach Moss. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson for the Patriots ran for, I think, at least over 100 yards. I want to say over 120 yards or close to it. So they, it sounds like I didn't watch the game, admittedly, but it seems like they thrashed them on the ground.
Yeah, Bengals didn't even have that many rush attempts.
A ball control type game. So that was the biggest, I think, outcome surprise to me. As far as individual performances, Kirk Cousins was a big disappointment. 16 to 26, 155 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Falcons only scored, I think, 10 points.
Yes, 18 to 10.
Now, obviously, Pittsburgh is known for having a good defense. But I mean, for you and I, who both expect big things from the Falcons, you have them as the number 2 seed in the NFC.
Yeah.
Definitely a big surprise for me.
Yeah. I mean, AFC North defenses are just a different animal.
Yeah.
Regardless of who plays them. If you're not in that division, I feel like you always get sucker punched in the mouth. And this is why they always have 3 teams making the playoffs basically every single year. So it's just, I don't know if the Falcons got caught off guard, if that's combined with a new quarterback and new chemistry that's going on. But I mean, you pay a lot of money for this quarterback. You expect him to at least throw at least 30 to 35 times, 300 yards, 3 TDs, an interception here or there, or whatever. But it's definitely, I guess, a disappointment, and I guess a little reflection time for Kirk Cousins to be. Well, I mean, I guess the main thing is how he feels. Overall, I feel like it's an okay result. I mean, Pittsburgh's definitely not a bad team, but taking a step back, I feel like the important part is making sure Kirk Cousins came out of that healthy, I suppose. How his Achilles is healed, how he feels after the game, all that sort of stuff. But I mean, it's a disappointing result, but I feel like bigger picture, you take the result because you're playing Pittsburgh, but it's not a bad team at all.
No, and I'll be curious to see how they rebound, or specifically how he rebounds, because my fear, and we briefly talked about this in the breakdowns with the AFC South, Michael Penix did not play at all in the preseason.
Right.
If Cousins continues to have poor performances, are we going to start to hear that conversation? Which would just be mind-boggling to me.
I feel like you can.
I know, but it's the only thing that makes sense. Why did Michael Penix not play in the preseason? You can't. There's got to be something there, and I just feel like if Cousins continues to underwhelm, it's going to start to be a storyline.
Right.
So keep an eye on that.
Right.
And then last surprising performance, really surprising to me, was Deshaun Watson. I honestly feel like I'll read out his numbers. So 24-45, 169 yards, 1 TD, 2 interceptions. I actually felt like his performance was worse than that.
There's a lot of garbage time there.
It was horrible.
There's a lot of garbage time.
They looked horrible.
Yeah.
You could say that the Browns in general, but specifically Deshaun Watson, he was running for his life. I felt like none of his throws were really on target. He overthrew, underthrew Amari Cooper more times than we can count.
Yeah.
So I was really surprised with how he looked / the Browns looked.
Yeah, and my heart hurts because of this one, because I like Deshaun Watson as a QB. I mean, ever since his Houston days, it's just been one of those things where I thought he had a lot of promise. I think he'd be contending for MVP for years to come. It's rough to watch him now. I feel like he still has all the potential in the world. He still has a cannon for an arm. It's just, for whatever reason, he's just not putting the ball where it needs to be.
Yeah. So he will be another one that I think potentially, if he looks that bad, Jameis Winston will start for that team. They're too good defensively.
Mm-hmm.
He will start for that team. Maybe week 8 on,
Mm-hmm.
you'll start to hear that conversation.
And that to me makes a lot more sense than Kirk Cousins, to be honest with you, because Deshaun Watson has had plenty of years to prove himself there in Cleveland, and it just has not worked.
All right, so we already kind of got into it with the whole Cousins and Watson thing, but we're going to jump into our overreactions. So I'll let you go first.
Okay, so I guess this kind of ties in with Deshaun Watson because Bryce Young reminds me a lot of Deshaun Watson. And I've tried to defend him on just young QB and whatnot, but I'm calling it out. Bryce Young is a certified bust.
Yeah.
Like I watched that game against the Saints today, and just like Deshaun Watson's problems, he was overthrowing the ball, he was underthrowing the ball, he wasn't reading the blitz right, and he wasn't. Hot routes wasn't even a thing to him at this stage of the
wasn't
game.
even a thing.
Like, he wasn't audibling anything. Like it could be one of those situations where we were talking about. I think Lamar Jackson wasn't allowed to audible. We were talking about that during one of our off-season episodes.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's just even if you can't audible, you should know it's there. The blitz is coming from that, or the defense is loading on that side of the ball. So to me, it's been a mental challenge for Bryce Young. I mean, his first pass of the year was intercepted, and I mean, I looked at his body language. He kind of like smirked it off. He was laughing about it. And like to me,
I didn't realize that his first throw was intercepted.
Yeah, his first throw he overthrew a receiver, and it got intercepted by one of the safeties. But yeah, he kind of just like smirked it off, and to me that looked more like a smirk of like hiding the pain,
right?
Rather than
like I'm dead inside.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And as he kept performing more and more, more of the real emotions kind of came out, and the game got out of control. So to me, it's just been one of those things where with Bryce Young is like I'm not sure how long it's going to take to develop him mentally, or if he'll ever get there.
Yeah, I mean it's we've talked about it numerous times. I feel like, but it's the risk you run when you throw a rookie quarterback, and now obviously he's in his second year, but last year they threw him out there week 1 with no weapons, no offensive line, no setup for success whatsoever. And how much damage mentally did last year do to him to where he's just beyond repair?
Right. Like it's going to be one of those things where like Sam Darnold, I'm going to throw back when he was in the Jets. You seeing ghosts out there.
Yeah,
like he's just not making the right reads. He's not throwing the ball well. It's just one of those things where you can tell it's mental. It's not any of his physical attributes. It's definitely mental. It's starting to affect everything that he's doing around him, and he's going to start losing favor really quick, I feel, this year.
Yep.
And that'll lead me onto the second one, because Bryce Young's coach is Dave Canales, and Dave Canales last year was with Tampa Bay.
Yep.
And that leads me to my second overreaction. And Baker Mayfield might go into the MVP conversations this year.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that one.
I'm going with Baker Mayfield in the MVP conversation. I'm not sure if he'll win it, but I feel like he'll definitely be in the conversation. I mean, he was 24 for 30, 4 TDs, had 3 rush attempts for 21 yards. I mean, the guy has found a home in Tampa Bay.
Baker's my boy.
Baker's your boy.
He always has been.
You called it last year that he was going to ball out in Tampa Bay, and he's done nothing but.
And Mike Evans have been like a lethal combination.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, and I'm starting to wonder if it was more of a Baker thing rather than a Dave Canales thing.
Yeah, I mean, that is a really good overreaction, because I think that maybe not so much with Baker, but the Canales thing, it might be too early for that, because he could come in and completely revive Bryce Young down later in the season, and then we'll be like, okay, Canales is the real deal. But Baker, man, I mean, if he continues to play like this, not only do I think that they're in serious competition to overtake Atlanta for the division, especially after Atlanta's performance, but yeah, I agree. I mean, he looked completely in control. He looked confident. He was on the sideline talking up his OC, getting in his face, telling him, having fun. So it just looks like they're, again, only after week 1, but it looked like they were completely clicking.
Yeah, he hasn't missed a step.
Yeah.
There was nothing chunky or clunky about anything about Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay offense, even though they lost Dave Canales. So to me is a big telltale sign of how Tampa Bay is approaching this year, and they're definitely going to build off their success that they found last year.
Yep. All right. I love that one.
I knew you would. I knew you would.
All right, so my first overreaction, and maybe this isn't one, but Xavier Worthy is going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Ooh, okay.
I knew he was fast, but and I'm not kidding you. So we were watching the game Thursday night, and he took the reverse to the house, his first touch, and I literally out loud said, "Holy crap, that dude is fast!" Like to myself,
right?
Because the way he turned the corner and how he got from 0 to 100 was like unbelievable to me. And I mean, he only had 3 touches in the game; 2 of them were touchdowns.
Yep.
So I think that it's sickening to me that the Chiefs got him. Now watching him, seeing him live in game action, because I didn't watch him at all in Texas, right? I knew he was fast. I heard about the combine,
right?
But it's only week 1, so the things that I feel like Andy Reid is going to scheme up for him, it's just going to be stupid.
Yeah,
I think that I feel so much more confident in my Chiefs pick after watching that game, and it's a large part because of what I think he can become.
Yeah, it's an added dimension to that offense. I mean, last year they were kind of a little bit more methodical with Isaiah Pacheco and Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce kind of like just chunking you down the field. And now Xavier Worthy can score at any time, basically.
Yeah, and side note, away from him a little bit, on the Chiefs, I heard somebody talk about it the next day that what he does, if you look at Rashee Rice's stat line, he had at least 100 yards. He had, I want to say, 7 catches, maybe even more than that. But they said that if you pay attention to where Rashee Rice was catching all his balls, they're all in the mid-range, middle of the field, and it's because Xavier Worthy is taking the top off the defense.
Oh, yeah.
And so they all have to extend to cover him, and there leaves Rice, Kelce, whoever, and obviously Thursday Rice was the benefactor of that.
Right.
So that's just a whole other thing that now teams have to worry about.
Yeah.
They're sending their guys to make sure they cover Worthy deep, and then there's Rice or there's Kelce in the middle of the field.
Right.
I think the Chiefs are going to be freaking good. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a guy that's that fast, you don't really have a cornerback that's going to cover that, so you're going to rely on a safety. Obviously, when safety helps out with a wide receiver trying to take off the top, I mean, you're going to leave a little room there in the middle underneath. So I mean, like I said, that's where Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce kind of make their money. That's their bread and butter right there. So I mean, this Chiefs offense has it going on all 3 facets: run game, mid range, and then deep. So it's a scary offense, obviously. But like you said, it's Tyreek Hill 2.0 basically, and so the fact that every other NFL team allowed it to happen is kind of mind-boggling. I wonder how much mind games go into the NFL draft. I mean, how much do you draft for your needs and best player available, and how much do you actually draft to keep a guy away?
Someone away, yeah.
Because that's kind of what we do during our fantasy drafts. Yes, it's like, I don't want this person to have this.
100%.
It's always
want Jeff to have Alvin Kamara. I'm going to draft him.
Exactly. Or I don't want you to have Tua.
Yeah.
so I draft them ahead of you. Stuff like that. But obviously, each roster is looking to improve themselves, and I feel like there's not that much thought put into I'm not going to like draft someone out of my way just to keep them away from this team, especially if I have this player graded above them or whatever. But the Chiefs getting Xavier Worthy in the first round is might end up being the steal of the draft.
100%. Yep. And then this next one, I think you're going to like.
Ooh.
So Drew Lock will be starting for the Giants by week 5.
True. By week 5?
By week 5. So let me tell you why. Are you ready?
Uh-huh.
So first of all, the Giants looked horrible today.
Yeah.
That's one. They lost 28-6.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Jones threw another pick 6. His stat line real quick. 22-42, 186 yards, 2 picks, one of them returned for a touchdown. So their next 3 games, they have the Commanders, Cleveland, and then Dallas. So that's 0-4 to me. But here's specifically why I said week 5, because the game against Dallas is a Thursday night game. So that gives you 10 days to have Drew Lock get in, warm up, and week 5 he goes back to Seattle. It lines up too perfectly.
A revenge Drew Lock game.
They're going to be 0-4. They're going to be 0-4, and I think Brian Daboll, whether he wants to admit it or not, is already done with Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Like really got that impression by watching the Hard Knock show. He was way too into like interviewing these rookie QBs. Like if you're content with your quarterback, like I feel like you're not gonna. I mean, you'll do your homework, but
Right.
he was really quizzing like everybody.
Like
And
save me.
there was a clip where they said, would we trade up for Daniels being Jaden Daniels, and Dable said, "Oh, I would." So like he clearly was like, you know what I mean, like
Right.
So I think that Dable wants nothing to do with Daniel Jones, and I think that after they go 0-4, I think he's gonna. I circle that Dallas game because I just think prime time Thursday night against an amazing defense, it's not gonna be good, and I think that he's gonna be riding the bench after week 4.
Okay. Yeah. No, I can definitely see that. I mean, Daniel Jones. I feel like anytime he's going to touch the ball in New York now, it's just going to be filled with booze. So honestly, I'd be surprised if it even lasts that long. If he lasts that long. But yeah, Daniel Jones. I mean, pick 6. That's comes to be a Daniel Jones special.
I mean, he even threw on a preseason.
Yeah. Yep. It's Daniel Jones special.
Yeah.
It's part of his MO now. Put it in your bingo card. But it's just one of those things where if you're Brian Dable, I mean, you just try to make the rest of the roster better to kind of make yourself look better for your next coaching gig, wherever that's going to be. Because at this point, I think if everything what you say is true, and Brian Dable is definitely in that mentality of just trying to get out of Daniel Jones. I feel like you're just trying to get yourself out of there in any way possible, whether that's get yourself fired somehow, but not make it look so evident and obvious that all of a sudden your next team is going to think, oh, maybe he's going to shave points or throw the game if he's not happy.
I think that's why he's going to bench him so early to save his own job.
Right.
Because they're going to look so bad. He's going to have to show that he's making an effort to make adjustments.
Right.
I mean, nobody wants to get fired, right? I mean, there's only 32 head coaches at all in pro football. Like it's a distinguished job. Everybody wants it. So
job, though.
if he can at least show that he's doing his best, making strides. If they're competitive with Drew Lock, then maybe ownership will see that he's not the problem. It's Daniel Jones, and maybe who knows, they'll draft like Shedeur Sanders or something and set him up for next year. But I think that it's gonna come very quickly for the Giants, even if it's not that early. And I'm incorrect on the week 4 thing. But I think it's going to come very quickly to where they realize they need to make a change. Yeah,
the number one thing that just sticks out to me is that whole Hard Knocks thing that you keep bringing up with Saquon Barkley and how the GM was not convinced with Saquon and whatnot. Like, I mean, if you're Brian Daboll and this is the people who are running your football team, do you even want to be a part of that? I personally would be like, man, I need to get myself in a better situation with people who are actually going to listen to me, and people who actually know what to talk about. And to me, it's a tough situation. Obviously, it's a head coaching gig. You're trying to do the best you can with what you got. But I feel like there comes at some point, and it's just human nature, where you just got to get out of there. Like I feel like a lot of people, even with their regular jobs, are like, management isn't listening or whatever. And that's when we start listening to other offers and finding other jobs. And Brian Daboll, I mean, kudos to him for sticking it out there in New York, because that New York media is tougher tougher than nails. But all you can do is work with what you got. And I mean, if the higher ups are saying put Daniel Jones and keep putting him out there, then I mean, I don't know how much they're forcing his hand. I mean, last year we kind of heard the whole Robert Saleh with Zach Wilson bit about it's why is he still starting, and he's like, I don't know. Right. I don't know. So it might be one of those scenarios. So
PTSD.
Yeah, I know. So I mean, if Brian Daboll, you're in a tough situation. I don't think you're a bad coach at all. To me, it's just do what you got. Do what you got to do. To me,
yeah, yep. So we'll see. All right. So we decided collectively that we're not going to do power rankings after week 1. It's just because it's week 1, and like right now you have 4 teams that still haven't even finished a game.
Half the teams are going to be 1-0.
Right. So I mean, we could probably do it, but we're gonna give it another week or 2.
Yeah.
So we're skipping power rankings this week, and then so we're gonna do something different for our fantasy football part of the show. We wanted to kind of shake it up and not just typically last year we did studs and duds where we just read off stat lines.
Yeah.
So we kind of wanted to shake it up, and the idea that we came out with was, basically, this is a working title, okay, but I'm gonna call it Fantasy Bolo. Okay?
Fantasy
Be on the
Bolo.
lookout, right?
Oh, okay.
Something that we both saw, that we think that we fantasy owners need to be aware of going into next week. It could be starting somebody, it could be benching somebody, it could be a waiver wire pickup, an injury, a matchup that you know is coming, anything that you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
So we're each going to do we're going to do one this week, and then maybe, you know, as we go along, we'll do more. But
Right.
I'll let you kick it off with what you saw.
Okay. Well, I'll transfer back to the Pittsburgh and Atlanta game. I mean, Justin Fields got to start today. Russell Wilson was inactive. But I mean, I've been parading around for Justin Fields since Pittsburgh got him. To be honest with you, to start over Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
I just like the talent there. Justin Fields was 17 for 23, 156 yards. He had rushed 14 times for 57 yards. That'll make a defense commit
With
to
that defense. That's all you need to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That'll make a defense commit to you in the running game. So I like the connect, and this leads me to my overall player, and that's George Pickens. Justin Fields has a cannon of an arm. It's just been about accuracy with them in that regard. So George Pickens had 6 receptions on 7 targets. That's a pretty good ratio for 85 yards. To me, Justin Fields and George Pickens, that's a pretty good connection. I feel like they can have a similar connection like how Fields had with DJ Moore last year. DJ Moore had some really good games last year.
Yep.
Can win you a fantasy matchup a week here and there. But George Pickens, I feel like is a definite solidified wide receiver 1, regardless of matchup. However, I feel like his roof might be capped a lot more with Russell Wilson there, because I'm not sure where Russell Wilson is in this stage of his career. I mean, he was obviously in Sean Payton's offense last year, but I'm not sure there was really any wide receiver that benefited from that. With Russell Wilson being there.
No.
I mean, Cortland Sutton Cortland Sutton's the number one name that comes to mind, but I don't think he had that big of a fantasy impact last year. So George Pickens, to me, you will start him if Justin Fields is starting for the Pittsburgh Steelers. If Russell Wilson is starting for Pittsburgh, then
that's kind of like a wait and see.
I'd bench him for now. See what other wide receiver options you have. Waiver wire it a bit, but George Pickens is plug and play depending on Justin Fields playing or not.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. And, you know, bigger picture for Pittsburgh, I think it's really interesting to see what happens with the quarterback situation, because the storyline all preseason was like, a lot of people felt like Mike Tomlin was boxed in. You can't announce Justin Fields as your starter and then it goes wrong and you go back to Russell Wilson, who's been your backup, who's not going to be happy as a backup. And it's almost like you're going backwards, because you know Russell Wilson's only like a bridge guy. He's only there for a year or two, whereas you can announce Russell Wilson as your starter, have him flop or whatever, and then go to the young kid, and your team can still buy into that and be excited about, you know, the options.
Right.
So I've even heard some conspiracy theorists on ESPN radio say, well, you know, they had to announce Russell Wilson, and now all of a sudden he has this miraculous calf injury. It was the easiest situation for Mike Tomlin, because he announced Wilson as a starter. Now Fields had to come in because of a supposed injury now, and then their thing was, you know, is Russell Wilson ever going to see the field now? So that's an interesting story to me to keep an eye on. But I really like what you said about George Pickens, because I felt like he has really never had a bona fide star throwing him the ball. And so I really like that one a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
So mine is the potential tight end controversy in Baltimore. So, I mean, I feel like most people drafted Mark Andrews pretty high.
Oh, yeah.
Being, you know, what, 3rd, 4th, 5th round. He's always in that top tier of tight ends with, you know, Kittle, Travis Kelce. I mean, it's really those 3.
Yeah, those are the big 3
that I can think of. And so this, I mean, if you watch the game on Thursday, you couldn't not notice it, right? Was the lack of targets for Mark Andrews and how much playing time, and how, not even playing time, but how many targets Isaiah Likely had. So just read off their statistics real quick. Isaiah Likely had 9 catches, 111 yards, a touchdown on 12 targets. 12. And that really could have been 2 touchdowns. He missed, you know, by a toenail.
Right.
So, I mean, 12 targets. for Isaiah Likely. And in opposite perspective, Mark Andrews had 2 catches for 11 yards on 2 targets. So that to me is such a big, staggering difference that you have to, if you're a Mark Andrews owner, you need to get a backup plan really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And if you're somebody who's really unhappy with your tight end situation just in general, you can probably go pick up Isaiah Likely right now. Because I know Friday morning, I picked him. I at least put in a waiver claim for him in 2 of my leagues. In 2 of my leagues where I was not happy with my tight end situation.
Right.
I'm waiting for that to get processed, Tuesday or Wednesday morning, whenever that is. So do not do it. I'm talking to you.
Me?
I'm talking to you.
Maybe.
So, I mean, again, could that be a week 1 fluke? I don't know, because that's such a staggering difference.
I mean, we hear running back by committee all the time. Can this be a tight end by committee?
Yeah,
I mean, the closest thing I could ever think of is the Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski the thing that they had in Tampa Bay. But the problem is, back in New England, Tom Brady wasn't going to run. Right. That wasn't an option right there. I mean, you knew he was going to throw the ball, and he was going to throw the ball to who's reliable weapons. That was both of those tight ends. And in this case, Lamar Jackson, I'm not sure if he spreads the ball enough to warrant for 2 tight ends to kind of benefit and reap the rewards of all the targets that he's going to give out. I mean, you still got Zay Flowers there to give the ball to. Justice Hill, I feel like, got a few receptions there. It's I'm not sure if Lamar Jackson is going to throw enough to warrant 2 tight ends to be justified to roster.
So Zay Flowers was the other thing I was going to call out, because he had 10 targets.
Yeah.
So I really felt like it was Isaiah Likely and Zay Flowers. Those were the 2 guys that he was looking for. So I feel like if you're an owner of Zay Flowers, you got to be really encouraged by what you saw.
Oh, absolutely.
And if, like, again, not many people probably have Isaiah Likely on their team right now, I would say go do it.
Right.
And again, if you have Mark Andrews, you may need to come up with a backup plan.
Right.
That could very easily be Isaiah Likely, but you might need to go look up what tight ends are available, because that was really surprising to me.
Yeah, I mean, that'll put a couple managers in conundrums, though, if you have both Likely and Andrews in there. Because all of a sudden, who do you start at that point? Well, you're just rolling the dice on that one. I feel like there definitely needs to be a little bit more, I guess. I need to read a little bit more into it. Maybe like Andrews a little bit more of a blocker type tight end these days. Maybe he's lost a step or 2.
I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense, right? He loses a step because he was. And we talked about it in preseason, he was far and away, hands down, Lamar's top target. When they both came into the league around the same time, Mark Andrews was a stud. So if maybe he fell off a cliff, and I don't know, man, or maybe Isaiah Likely has just been that much more impressive in preseason.
Yeah.
But I think that's something to look out for.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll try and do something like this every week now going forward with our fantasy team. Just something that caught our eye that we think everybody needs to be aware of. So feel free to give us feedback on that if you guys want us to do something different, or you don't like this idea, or you want us to go back to studs and duds. We may throw that in every once in a while also. Who knows, but we wanted to shake it up and do things different this week. So all right, we are going to wrap up by doing our week 2 picks.
Ooh.
So recap here, we both went 1-1.
Yeah.
Which was disappointing. My lock was definitely a lock. I picked the Saints over the Panthers. My upset, I picked the Cardinals over the Bills, which started out great.
Yeah.
Didn't end great. So Bills ended up beating the Cardinals, and then you had the Dolphins over the Jaguars as your lock, which in the moment I didn't say this, but I'm like, dude, that's anything but a lock. And it ended up literally being anything but a lock. Last second field goal, but you got away with it.
No, I had it all under control. It was all part of the plan. Tyreek Hill getting arrested, all part of the plan.
You got lucky. You should be 0-2. I should be winning. And this is what I do. You got to calm down. So you got that one right, but you did miss your upset pick, which was the Broncos over the Seahawks.
Yeah, they were all right in the first half.
They started out good. I thought you were going to be 2-0. I was pissed. All right, so week 2, I'll kick us off. My lock, I got the Chiefs over the Bengals.
Okay.
I think the Chiefs, for everything we already talked about, the Chiefs I'm super excited about. The Bengals I'm kind of shocked about with their loss to the Patriots.
Right.
It's in Kansas City, I believe. How much does both of those performances carry over? We'll see. I really like the Chiefs over the Bengals there.
Okay.
My upset pick, I have the Bucks over the Lions. Lions favored by 6.5. It is in Detroit, but the Bucks played amazing today. Detroit will have somewhat of a short week with the Sunday night game. Bucks obviously looking for some revenge after the divisional loss last year to Detroit. So we'll see there. I like the Bucks over the Lions.
Yeah, I feel like that would definitely be a high-flying game on that one.
Oh, yeah, high scoring
in
for
Ford
sure.
Field? Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So for me, I got my lock. I got the Ravens over the Raiders. Obviously, both teams lost, coming off a loss, but I feel like the Ravens were just way too talented.
Yep.
I don't see too much trouble there, but who knows? Stranger things have happened. And then for my upset, I got the Cardinals over the Rams. Obviously, you picked the Cardinals this week.
I did.
I'll pick the Cardinals next week.
Which I told you off air, like I still feel validated by our interest in the Cardinals or our expectations on them.
Yeah.
I mean, I said it last week. I was kind of hedging a little bit, but I said if the Cardinals lose to the Bills, I still think it'll be a one possession game, and that's exactly what it was. They lost by 6 points, and they were up 17-3 at one point. So I still think that we're both correct. I think the Cardinals are going to be really good, and if nothing else, they're going to be in every single game.
Yeah. I mean, no questions about their offense kind of thing because they have the talent. Even we were talking about it, questionable play calling there in the offensive end for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
But I mean, they have the talent to score points regardless of how the game script turns out. But the biggest question is going to be their defense. If that can be a bend don't break type of defense to win them some games. But yeah, I mean the Cardinals over the Rams. I mean it's in Arizona, coming off a loss. I feel like their spirit should be high, even though they kind of lost this one. But I mean you showed a lot of positives. I mean Marvin Harrison, your first rounder, only had a reception for 4 yards. I mean you can only stress more connectivity with Marvin Harrison Jr. there. So to me, I feel like that there's definitely potential for an upset there.
Okay, I like it.
Yep.
All right, that wraps up our week 1 show. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. We, full disclosure, are not sure if we're going to have a week 2 show just because I will not be here. We are going to Tennessee to watch the Jets game. My wife and I are meeting my parents out there. We're going to spend the week in Nashville, or weekend, I should say,
right
in Nashville, have a good time, and then go to the Jets-Titans game, and then we're coming back home Monday. So not sure if we're going to have a show together or if maybe we'll do what we've done in the past and just kind of each share our thoughts and put it out there on social media.
Right.
But we'll do something just because obviously it's early in the season. We don't want to have an episode.
We're
don't want to not have a show.
Where are you on a bye
second week in the season? So we'll do something for you and just so stay tuned for that. And we hope you guys enjoyed.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to What Did They Know podcast. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media outlets to see future episode details. And don't forget to send in any questions or topics that you want to see the guys discuss in their weekly episodes to come.